Hello, and welcome to Your Brand Express podcast, the podcast where business owners, authors, coaches get a chance to articulate their processes and how they express their brands. With your hosts, Carl and CJ Aline. Get your favorite cup of coffee or tea and get a notepad and enjoy the ride. Are you a coach, author, speaker, or service provider who is afraid of speaking on camera? Join the Confident Video Star Nation to overcome your fear. Connect with other professionals, gain access to exclusive resources, trainings, and tools, and learn the skills to become a confident video star. Join now and start your journey to success. Go to Facebook and type in Confident Video Star Nation and join the nation today. All right, let's go. We were hanging out with the man, Sean Bjerke. How's it going, Sean?
Perfect pronunciation. We're off to a good start.
Dude, I remember Cora had to keep correcting me. I remember. Be away.
She's great. She's very, because like people ask her, for folks that don't know, I have a beautiful wife. Her name's Poor, and I told her, I said, hey, if we get married, do you want this name? Like it's a weird one. It's a little interesting. She's like, oh yeah, totally. So she likes explaining it to people, and yeah, Bjerke. That's that Norwegian blood.
Norwegian blood. I love it. She had to correct me like 7 times.
All good. Wedding.
All good. Sean, you and I go back, man. It's also a pleasure talking to you. And here's why. Because, we talked about this a little earlier too. We talked about the creative side of the brain and the analytical side of the brain. You're very logical, but you're also very creative. And I think the thing that binds both together is you're very curious, and that helps you to figure things out. So that always gives me such a respect for you, as an artist, as an individual, as a community builder, as an entrepreneur. So it's a pleasure to have you aboard today, my man.
I appreciate it, man. It's been, you just said, like, it's been a while. I think it's been 20 years, maybe this year-ish. I think I first met you at the dance complex in like 2003 when you were teaching. And you're still teaching, which is like, it says a lot about your longevity and your consistency. So I'm glad that we can make this happen.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Well, Sean, can you tell us a little bit about what you do? I know you do a plethora of stuff, and I love how you engage the community on many different levels, on an advanced level and also on a beginner basic level for those, wanting to learn movement and even applying it to their everyday lives. It's such a cross training for life, as one of my students once said to me,
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure. So I was originally in the biotech career field for about 15 years. And I came to a crossroads with that where, I was good at my job. I liked the people I worked with. But it wasn't that soul work for me, And I'd been involved in martial arts since I was about 8 or 9 years old. I got into dance when I was in college. And those things sort of kept me tethered to, like you mentioned earlier, like those creative juices, the things that I like to use to learn about myself and how I express myself. So I came to this crossroads where I had the opportunity to really pursue dance and teaching more full time. And yes, it came at the expense of getting laid off, but it's kind of that little kick, that little push I needed to really say, all right, we're going to commit to this. So the company I worked at, they laid off half the workforce. And I had talked to my wife, who mentioned Poor earlier, about, I've been thinking about this for a while, maybe going into dance to teach. And what do you think about that? She's like, well, you'll make it work, right? You're a hardworking guy. And so where I'm at now, this was back in 2018, where I started teaching full time with dance and martial arts. I teach in Cambridge, mainly, Cambridge, Boston, a few times a week. House dance. House was the genre of dance that I eventually gravitated towards, as far as like really enjoying the music, the movement, and just the people that I've met along the way. You were one of those people too. And I also teach at the JH Kim Tae Kwon Do studio in Porter Square. I teach a few times a week. And again, like that's like my base, but dance is like the space where I've really been able to explore not just the dance creatively, but how to, and we're going to probably talk about this, how to make it like a kind of career for myself in a city where, you know, there's a lot of dance and music, but it's not the same as like New York or LA or even places abroad where
Right.
there's a lot of government support for the arts. You have to kind of, yeah, and money.
For real. For real. Well, that too. I was giving snaps about that.
Oh,
'Cause
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
true.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
right, money too. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess like as far as like a little summary of what I do, I teach weekly classes, dance and Tae Kwon Do. I do like sometimes group workshops with organizations. I do private lessons, virtually and also in person. I try to engage. One of the biggest reasons I started teaching, especially in house, was I want to introduce the dance students to the dance, like to the culture of it. So there's a lot of, you know, and we have a lot of mutual friends who organize events around Boston and beyond. I try to really encourage my students to go into these other dance spaces, whether it's, you know, maybe a party or clubs or sessions, and meet the people that have been doing this longer than I have, right? They've been in the scene, people like Sammy Savuth and Steve Garcia. Like those guys have been holding it down for a really long time. And I've kind of inserted myself into the realm of, I guess, like the educational part, where I've been teaching for a long time in martial arts and then translating that experience into teaching dance. I really enjoy getting people to learn and explore themselves, and hopefully the dance holds a big space in their life to make them keep coming back to learn and also expand what they know about the culture as a whole.
I love that. You know, and I love it's cool hearing your background and from where you came from, and you talked about even how it gave you the kick to pursue the dancing, the teaching, full time. But it also blows me away, and I feel like people don't see this, but what dance does for people is amazing. You know, what
Crazy.
it does on a personal level, the confidence it gives them. I see students coming in and they got pep in their step. You know, they're men and women coming in. Even for me, I had students who got married from taking class. You know,
Yeah.
they decided to pursue something and be bold and step out on faith and do something like do a business or whatever. It's amazing how much of a cross training for life it is, but it's cool to see how you're like one of those launching pads here in New England where people can just kind of how do I say it, can just go off and just pursue something new in life. You know what I mean? So it's cool to
Yeah.
see, and even building the community. That's another aspect of it. You know,
And that's probably, you know, behind this. I don't want to say, behind the scenes might not be the right term, but kind of
I
like
know you're going with that.
behind what I do is like a career. Like
Mm,
that's the cool thing is when you see people, like you said earlier, like people that come into dance that maybe they've never danced before, maybe they never like
right.
moved a lot. Like sometimes like there's an expression in professional wrestling, like WWE. There was a famous wrestler named Ric Flair. I think a lot of people know who he is, but
Woo!
whoa, exactly, the Nature Boy.
Right,
They
right.
said like he was such a good like worker that he could get a good match out of like a broom. You know, like he could have a wrestling match with a broom, and it would be like, wow, did you see that? You know, so
Yeah.
not to like compare people to brooms, but like, you get people that just don't have dance experience. So
Right.
I think one of the cool things for me is when you can take someone like that, or maybe someone like that doesn't, maybe they haven't had an experience in a certain genre like house, and you get to connect with them in a way that makes them really forget like where they came from. You know, it's like it's
Mm,
okay that you just showed up now and you have this room of people that have been here for a while, but you have a
right.
part to play, right? Like you can learn something. You can impress yourself by learning something. Sometimes that's all
Right.
people need to get started is like, wow, like you've heard this expression like, oh, I have two left feet. It's like, okay, well, make them the best left feet that you can,
Right.
you know, and then
Right.
then you'll figure out some more things. So, yeah, I try to really get people to be curious about what they can learn, and then they see how they can insert themselves into this bigger thing, you know, past the class, it's the
Mm.
community, right?
Right, right. Yeah, it's just cool to see. again, I've seen people come in and, they're different. There's one particular person I think about in general. She's wearing makeup and everything. I'm like, okay, go girl.
Yeah.
It's just like it's like you're helping people to unlock certain areas of their lives.
Yes.
And it's hard to articulate, but I've seen it, of course, teaching and coaching, but even seeing you and seeing how you impact students, it's really amazing to see, so I just wanted to communicate that.
I appreciate that, man. And same for you. Like you're someone, whenever your name comes into conversation, like the first thing I think of is whenever I'm around Carl, whether it's in a electronic box or like, getting back,
Right.
it's like he always brings that authentic, positive energy, even if he's probably having a bad day or like a busy day, it's like he's there for everyone else. Like he gives himself to the people around him, and that's like something that's stuck with me for a while. And like I can't copy what you do, but I can take that inspiration and say, all right, maybe I'm having a rough day, but my class is here, they're ready to go. That inspires me. Let me show up for them. So,
Right. I love you said that phrase, show up.
Show
It's
up.
one of the phrases that shows. My wife coined this phrase, "Swazo," show up and show out.
I like that.
And it's not like it's showing. Yeah, and it's like not like you're showing up for other. It's not like you're showing off for people, but you're showing up and showing out because you give your best. That inspires others to give their best because we see the benefits of what it does for other people.
That's it.
And that goes across all other industries.
Yeah.
So
what's up,
talking
Teresa?
about
Shout out to Teresa.
Shout out to Teresa. Shout out to Steve Garcia. Shout out to Sammy Savuth. All the folks we mentioned and we will mention later on. Yeah. So talking about community, what would you say will be the most important components when it comes to building a successful community? Because I've seen this community, and we'll get into this later on too, but this community you've built, and you've helped build, and it's something different. And from what I see, it's amazing,
Yeah. It's probably the most important thing is you need people for sure.
Facts.
So, and then like I would say one step past that is like people that have some level of curiosity or interest in what their next step is, right? In joining a community. So like you think of maybe a group of kids in school, like there's a club, like a book club. And okay, like to have a club, we need some kids, but you also want to read books. Like you have to be interested in reading books. If you're not interested in reading books, maybe you want to join the football team or the math team. I don't know. So you want to have the people, you want to have, that little bit of curiosity to like get started. And then like I tell people that, and I alluded to this earlier, you want to be able to give them the image of something that's a little bit bigger than what it is that they're doing. So for example, if you're, I mentioned like math team, like if you're good at doing math in school, that's great. That's, you can do a lot. But as a kid, when you're looking like further, it's like, well, what can I do with math, right? Like, what are the professions that I can get into? I can become a math teacher. I could become an engineer. I could become a scientist, astronaut, like a bunch of things. Like those are just kind of like low hanging things in my head. You don't necessarily have to do that, but there's a lot of things that can create a career that supports your lifestyle, that can come from just being good at math, right? And then like on a more casual level, if you're good at math, you can do a lot of basic functions that help you out in day-to-day life, right? You know how to pay your rent on time, right?
Right.
So like with dance, like I think New England and Boston is like I'll say in Cambridge specifically where I teach most of my classes, it's an interesting space because you already have this community of people that are embedded in the idea of learning and like kind of self-improvement, right? Maybe not all the people that naturally grew up around dance and music, but it's, there's resources here through classes, through events where if you have this curiosity to learn, hey, maybe you can learn how to do a little bit of dance. And then once you have a little bit of dance, what can you do with that dance? And that's where like the community aspect comes in.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love that. It's like you show them what it can do for their lives.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah. I'm not gonna make them go a certain way. Like that's one thing that like Sammy has said a lot. He's like, I don't necessarily want to tell people what to do, but
Right.
I will guide them in some direction. Like, hey, you want to learn more about music? Like, here's some people you can follow, or here's some events that you can go
Right.
to where you can hear some good music. And I like that. I like that approach. It's not like we're trying to fit anyone to a mold, right?
Right. And that's pretty important. You're like, it's like you're not binding it on them,
Yeah.
but you're giving them their options. Hey, here's what you could do, but you're showing them what it does. And I find that creates a level of curiosity as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I myself have to be, representative of what I'm talking about. So it's like, hey, I'm telling you to go to events. I go to events. I try to, and as a teacher, like sometimes the dancer's bugaboo is like, man, I would love to go to these events, but I also have stuff to do. But I try to turn up when I can, show up when I can. I try to promote when I can. It's like, oh,
Right.
Carl, Kenzie, and Aaron, they're doing a joint locking class. Hey, go to that.
Right.
Try to like tell people what's going on, because that was something I'd say was a challenge for me when I was getting started with learning about house. Was there wasn't necessarily like like structured things in place to be like, yep, you're gonna go there to do this.
Right.
Had to kind of pick it up on my own. So now that I've gone through that, it's like, okay, if I'm your entry point, these are the other things you can go to that I encourage you to, try out, so to speak, if you want to go a little deeper.
No, that is deep, because it's like you mentioned that phrase entry point. It's
Yeah.
like you're conscious of the fact that you consider yourself an entry point in a gateway, for lack of better words, to
Yeah.
show people where to go, as far as if you want to learn more about this and get deeper into this and find out the things you can learn and what you can add to this community as well.
Yeah, I think that's a thing that can be a tricky point. Is like you have to walk this line of like this is what you can do, but in order to do some of these things, there is a sense of responsibility that goes with it. And sometimes when someone, depending on who it is, they receive that information like, oh, in order to do that, I have to do this. That when you feel like you have to do something, sometimes that pushes people away, like, oh, I have to dedicate time and energy
Right.
or resources to doing this thing. And sometimes for house, I'd say like maybe other dances too, but I'd say this, it's I see it more, is part of what makes house special is like the club scene, right?
Right.
But the average, I don't want to say the average person, a lot of people, when you say, hey, go to the club and dance in a dark space late at night around people that you don't know, it's like, por qué? What? So like that's one of those things. It's like, oh, in order to like embrace that part of it, I might have to do something I'm not really used to doing. But there's ways to get around that, and there's ways to kind of integrate people that might feel a little opposed to that or like uncomfortable with that to do it.
Right.
And that's, I think, part of, we might get into this in some of the questions. Like one of the challenges, trying to reach out to different people in different ways to figure out how to connect them to these things,
Right. Right. And it seems to me like, from what I see, it seems like your passion for it and your passion for the people and people seeing you and then how watching you and seeing you as a flesh and blood example, seeing how you engage with other dancers and in that community, it seems like that draws you to them, or to the community.
Yeah. Yep.
Nice.
I think that's and you can probably attest to this too, is when did you start, like, you probably started dancing when you were young, but when did you start kind of approaching it from like a career perspective?
That's a good question.
It doesn't have to be like exact.
It was on different
kind of,
levels. For me, it was as a team, because I was more so singing and dancing. So that it was more on the level of being an entertaining performer, like doing tours and stuff like that. As far as the street dance side of things and even teaching, that was around, for me, that was around like 98, 97, 98. I'd say 90, 98. Like,
yeah.
Wow. Like even experiencing, like in 96, I experienced Funk Phenomenon. And before that, I was doing stuff for City Lights. But it was different because I was doing it from a group standpoint. We were performing and entertaining. Then that 98 point came along. I was like, oh, I could teach with this too. Like officially teach, not not teaching in the back end and choreograph for people and kind of teaching like, all right, fine, all right, y'all, I don't even know how to count, but here we go, let's go,
Right.
ready, go.
Yeah.
More so learning the techniques I needed. That's when it started being ingrained in me.
Yeah. I'd say honestly, like maybe around the same time, like late 90s is when like I was in high school at that point and I had my black belt in Tae Kwon Do. And my teacher, like I was working with a lot of kids, but I could tell like, okay, it's my teaching is going to have to change to fit whoever I'm with, right? I have to be flexible. I didn't necessarily realize that in a concrete way then, but I saw like,
Right.
oh, it's not so easy as just showing up and saying what you want people to do and they do it. Like
Right.
you're gonna have some rough days.
Facts.
Yeah. So I think so where I was going with that was just like you kind of depending on where you are in the dance or teaching space, movement space, whatever is, you're going to kind of be focused on where you're developing and where you're like developing how to put your strengths into it. So I think at that earlier on, it's like I have the energy and the physicality to like go out there and do it, but my message might not be so clear because I'm not used to working with a wide range of people yet. I'm being introduced to them.
Right.
Then the more you do it, and also I think something that's helped me a lot, and apologies if I'm going like off track.
Oh no, this is good.
Yeah, sometimes it's good, right? I think I have maintained the consistency of like continuously taking classes and learning from different people over the years. I take less classes now just because my time has to be distributed differently, but I think I learned a lot from like people like you, like not just like what you're teaching, but like how you're teaching it and like why your class experience is a good experience for me, or like why Ricardo's class might be a good experience for me, whoever. And you start to pick up these kind of things that solidify in your head. And you're like, oh, I'm going to apply that when I teach. Like maybe I need to be a little more strong with my voice. I can't like stay back here and be more reserved. Maybe I have to be a little more uncomfortable and project. And then people start to respond to that. And you're like, okay, cool. Now I need to find how to navigate in this space. So dancing for me has always been like this evolving thing where, I might be focused on like learning my techniques here, but then I have to figure out how do I translate that information to teaching. Okay, this person's at this level. How do I take them up to another level? This person's at a good level. How do I get them to get into the scene a little bit more and make it more meaningful for them?
And that's important, Sean. I for those who don't know, I call Sean Shiz sometimes.
That's cool. Yeah,
that's important, Shiz.
People call me Shiz. They're like, "Is that your name or is that an?" And I'm like, "It's Carl."
It's his fault. But it's important because that is so key to do when you go into a class and you see another teacher. I like saying teacher or coach. I use those words interchangeably. When I see a teacher or coach and they're teaching and you're able to pick something up and you're able to see how they teach and seeing what they communicate and seeing, you also mentioned too, seeing how the crowd responds to them or how you respond to that specific teacher. That's important because that builds your competency,
Yes.
So, and if you could pay attention to that and be like everyone doesn't go to a class and think that, you know what I mean?
Right.
But that's a golden nugget right there. And in with our audience, we have coaches, different type of coaches, service providers, public speakers, and I like bringing the art side of things in there because let's keep it real. Even with businesses, there's an art culture that that impacts the business world. So that's why that's what I like bringing to the table.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's important. So when you go into a class or any setting and you're watching this, you're taking a look and see how someone's expressing something or teaching or coaching or explaining something, even from a stage. If you're able to see what they're doing and break down how they're doing it, that accelerates your learning. That makes you so much better. That gets you so much. That gets you better as a coach or whatever you're doing. So That's my point. So when you said that, Sean, I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool. That's pretty significant, you know?
Yeah. And that reminds me, I think I was trying to get to that point. Sometimes I rant a little bit, but it's like,
Dude, I love ranting.
that's where the creativity comes, right?
That's it. That's it.
It's like sometimes you have this in front of you, but you're accumulating a lot of things over time. And then you get to this point, sometimes it feels like you're like this day to day. Then some time goes by, you realize, wait a second, I have like all of this. And then things start to, like you just said it, things start to come to you a little quicker. You're like, oh, I've been, sometimes I'm looking too much over here, but I see this now. Oh, this is the thing that's gonna make things connect. And then you operate in this space and you're like, oh, now I see how I can like make this, I can learn this faster now, or it makes sense to me quicker versus before I had to kind of go through 7 steps to get there. Now it's like, okay, I know where to drop in. I know how to use this. And that's why I think education is so important for people, is that you get to just function more freely in many different spaces. Right. You're not limited to just like, oh, I go to class and that's how I learn from this teacher.
Right.
Go to a different class. There might be another teacher that's giving you a lot of information, a lot of good stuff, but you're like, oh, it's different than this. So I don't know how to do it. But I think for me, like learning from so many people through different methods, different ideologies, different movement forms, it's like, now I see what's available, and it helps improve my ability to teach.
Right. That's such a big deal, and it's cool because, and I know, we know each other, like to do that and to make it your own.
Yeah.
That just accelerates your growth. I know I mentioned the accelerate your growth before, but that's important for our audience because that's a great point. You want to, as you're learning, you want to be conscious of what you're learning, what you're taking in, and asking questions, learning how to ask yourself the questions so that you could figure out what the person's doing, because that's a challenge. And then some people, what they'll do, some coaches, they'll revert to just copying the person as opposed to making something their own because they can't figure out that formula to learn what they're doing and making it your own. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Rock on. So back to the whole community thing. Like, what tips would you give someone who's looking to build a community? Like whether it's coaching, dance, fitness, whatever.
I would say, like kind of I mentioned this earlier about being a representative of what you're doing is whatever it is that you're doing, already have taken the steps to elevate yourself in some way, to be, like a leader for the people that you're trying to, foster. Right. And I'm not saying be the leader, but like, you know how you can raise people up. So you have to first work on yourself. Right. I'd say that is like, work on yourself first to be the best representation that you can be at that time. Right. Like when I first started teaching house, for example, it was like 2015 ish. I was like, I know there's like a ways to go and a lot of things to learn, but right now I have the time and resources for it. Right. So I can show up and I can give people what they need to get started. Right. So I was really good with like teaching basics, how to connect basic things together. And I was also a person that could say, hey, go to session with Steve, right? Go to this party. So I had some things that I could do that I could always like stand under and give that to people. So working on myself, also continuing to work on myself so I can elevate what I can give. And then we talked about this earlier, showing up, being consistent, like having, like, I think in this day and age with a lot of things, people, they see a lot of things that they like, and they like the idea of being famous or the idea of being in this career path. But then when they try to do it, and they experience not just the good things, but like there's a lot of work and a lot of negative things. They're like, I I don't know anymore. So it's like,
Right.
you know, the idea of it versus like really wanting to do it and commit to it. Once you start, like, commitment is like a lifestyle, like in itself. It's like once you're used to showing up and you know like what you need to do to kind of um, be ready outside of your commitments too, like getting yourself ready to go and do these things, it becomes really second nature. Like I run into a lot of people who they want like all the answers to the test like right now. It's like, well, I want to do this, but what if this happens? And it's like, I don't know. You have to kind of learn when it comes. You know, like I have
Right.
one guy, like we're doing this. We're actually going to be doing this kind of house school we're starting up,
Mm.
and
Love it.
he like people want to do it, but they also are like, oh well, can I commit the time and money to it? Can I commit, you know, like the am I going to have the energy for it? And then I have one guy that's just like, well, you know, what about this? Like, what if this happens? What if the? It's like, you know what, man? Like that's the goal of committing to something is that you just learn to take it and adapt to it and adjust along the way. It's not going to be we can't make this experience molded to you. You have to mold yourself to the experience, right? There's I mean
Mm.
there's a little give and take with that, but it can't be
Right.
entirely like what is this in 100% for you? It's like how are you going to get something from this experience? Maybe it's stuff that you don't even see or realize right now. But
Right.
I can't lay it all out for you and tell you exactly how it's going to go. That's not how life works. So
Right.
so yeah.
It's the P word, process, huh?
You got to trust the process. You got to trust the process. That's the real, you know, reward at the end of the day for people that are, you know, in that kind of growth, like learning mindset is like, it's not the, like Tae Kwon Do, it's not about your belt. Like at first it's like, yeah, I want to get my black belt or I want to get my next belt. But the fact that you just get to do it and
Right.
you learn so many life skills along the way of
Right.
how to like navigate uncertainty and discomfort and, you know, challenge yourself. That's the reward because most people don't want to put themselves through that, right? They
Right.
want the idea, oh, having a black belt would be great. Getting there, not so great. You
Right.
know, but you if you do it and you understand like all these things are forging who I am,
Right.
at the end of the day, like, wow, look at all that stuff I did. You know, that's like legacy, right? It's an important thing.
Legacy.
Yeah.
Right. Right. That's deep, man. You know, it's interesting because that's one of my themes this year, just process. And I love how you said trust in the process. You know, as we navigate through process, there's so much unknown, and then that creates a fear of the unknown, even before you get into the process, because you know you're gonna go through something
Yeah.
to get to your goal. But that's where the gold is going through the process and getting the experience, and you know you're going, and it's like jumping hurdles. You're gonna jump, and you'll be able to jump higher. Then you'll be able to jump higher, and the
Yeah.
reward you get that reward, but you look back and say, "Wow, look how high I jumped."
Yeah. And I
You
wasn't able to
know.
jump at first.
Right. Now, I didn't think I could jump at all. Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
And then you're able to do it and you're able to jump higher. So that's powerful, man. That's those some hey, I hope y'all listen. These are some golden nuggets right here. I hope you know if you need to stop it, stop the recording and then go back and listen again. All
It's the beauty
right.
of technology.
Beauty of technology. So Shiz, you know, any final thoughts as far as building community? Any other piece of advice you'd give to our community when it comes to building community? I just find that you're one of the guys I see, and I see a lot of people in the dance community, and not just the dance, but music community. Boston has such a rich community when it comes to the arts. But you're one of those guys where I see you're having fun, you show up, you show out,
Mm.
you're there, and you're like a star. When I look at you, I'm like, wow, this dude's going.
Appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
So what's as far as the question goes, like what's important about or like what should people know about
Yeah, for you,
different.
like if from your standpoint, you know.
Well, okay, I would say like so something that's important for me is I talked about like having the people to build a community from, but also being connected and understanding how to reach out people already in the community, you know, and that goes like it's like above and around me. You know, like I said earlier, there's
Right.
people that have been doing this longer than me that have more experience, other journeys to take inspiration from. You know, it's like I did things this way, other people
Right.
went this way or this way. And being connected to those people and being able to not just collaborate but interact with, you know, it's like if I was doing my thing and I blocked all that out, I'm not
Right.
really in the community, right? But
Mm.
I can be doing my thing and still be connected to these things and have positive relationships, because like especially in Boston it's really important to be aware of that, because we have a smaller community. It's not New York where just you have such a large volume of people being attracted to these, you know, these dances or these environments, almost
Right.
out of like just like by default, like there's just this huge melting pot of people. It's not the
Mm.
same volume of people to draw from, and also the different volume of people that are interested in it.
Right.
So being connected to those pillars or those folks like in house, like the DJs, people that organize events, other dancers, all those people I just said outside of Boston, right? So like being able to tap into New York, being able to tap into Canada, Europe. You know, I've been to South America a couple times now. Like I could go to South America and like get together with people that I've met and we have a good experience. Like that's part of the community. So being able
Mm.
to branch out in the web and stay attached, stay in proximity to other people in the community, that makes you feel like you can go anywhere and you're still part of it.
Mm. I love that. And the word I heard, you know, when you're saying that is the word respect. You know,
Yeah.
just having that respect for you mentioned the pillars. I
Yes.
love how you respect not just the dancers, you mentioned the DJs, you know, people who provide the music, the sound for us.
Yep.
And the importance of that, you know, and just the respect, you know, and because it's easy to kind of just go and do your thing and not, you know, not have the respect for other people who paved the way for you, you know.
Right, right. And sometimes like the most respectful thing you can do is just like step aside and listen to like what else is there, because like I can come in with my experience and my knowledge that might be different, or maybe I talk about something a little different than somebody else, but their experience is bigger than mine. So
Mm.
they might say something or do something that's like, well, you know, my message is a little different, but we have to respect this because it came first, right? It came first. And
Right.
then we can see from there through, again, through respect, we can have a respectful dialogue and talk about like, okay, this is maybe something that is very important in your space, and it still is, but maybe it was more prominent before. This might be something that I look at as being important to know now. So how can we bridge these things, right? How can they coexist in the same space so that new people can look and be like, all right, it's not Sean, it's not this, it's both, right? And like
Right.
this information also came from before all of us, right? Like the moves that I
Facts.
teach, like they're not my moves, but like the way I teach, that's me. Like my method for teaching is me. But the movement, you know, dance is always like you take something and then you put it to some new music, right? You
Right.
take something, you put your creative spin on it, but it doesn't change where it came from.
Right. I love that. I love that respect, and you know, just being able to, and you know, I think about too. I think about with the respect for those who've paved the way before you helps to continue the community and helps to expand the community, whereas the lack of respect can crush a community,
Yeah, big
can
time.
dwindle a
Yeah.
community.
And that's the thing, like with Boston, is like some of our dance spaces, like we're too small of a community to afford there to be unnecessary, you know, drama. So it's really,
Right.
it's even more important to be connected and respectful of the people around you, because it just takes one little rift to, you know, set the bomb off, you know.
Right.
So
Right.
and then being respectful of other dance spaces outside of, you know, the silo that we might be in. Sometimes that's the thing in Boston, is like people are in their own silos, which the silo itself isn't bad, but when you can open yourself up to the other groups and figure out, well, like for example, I started dance more in the the choreography, the studio realms. Like I learned dance in the studio, but I saw that there were other things outside of that that I wanted to connect to. And Ricardo Foster was someone that was really good at just giving us a little bit of everything. It's like, this is popping, this is crump, this is house, this is locking, this is hip hop. We're going to go perform on stage at a dance event, like all these different little things. And you see, like, there's a lot to this. I'm focused on this right now. There's a lot to this, but I have to be open to going into those spaces and being able to function. It's not just what I'm doing. And I think nowadays, you have a lot better, I think, organization, especially in like younger people focus groups, where they do their thing and they're good at it. So sometimes it's like, okay, they're good at it. And then they get on that track where it's like, it's only pushing that. Like we're only gonna rehearse and go perform. Cool. But if you really want to get more out of that, you don't want to just do that until you stop. Like, okay, and now I'm gonna stop. You want to be able to connect to other things that are adjacent, right? Or around that. So it's like, oh, we want to get better at performing. Maybe we need to go to some foundation classes to learn more about the dance. Maybe we need to go and dance in a way that's not always rehearse, clean, perfect, perform. Like there's just social dancing. There's just dancing just for the sake of dancing, right? Like me just turning on some music in my living room and just kind of move around is the most organic thing that I can do in dance, right? Not like, okay, what's my what's my move that I'm going to do, right? That's part of it that plays into my language, but just being able to be sensitive to music and not have to do it for any other reason than just, I'm here. Like a lot of, I think in the performance realm, that idea is not so present, So I would say like being open to all the things adjacent and being able to tap into those things will help a community. Like if more people in the community did that, I'd feel like we'd be more connected. We can help each other.
I love that. That reminds me of what you mentioned earlier when you walk into a class and saying, hey, how can I, when you're conscious of learning these specific tools that you got, it's kind of taking that in a bigger scope. Like, how can I take the tools and learn these different tools and add to it, and make this whole community better? That's what it kind of reminded me of. It's kind of full circle.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, Sean, Shizmatic, where can people find you? If they wanted to find you online, where can they find you?
So I have a website, which is another thing. One of the things I remember, one of your questions was if you're trying to get out and do your thing, try to learn about how you can be, have a simple way that people can find you online. So SeanBjerke.net, SeanBjerke.net. I've got my class schedule there. I've got different resources and things that I do, like as far as private lessons. I have online, like short online resource classes, courses. We're doing some events coming up.
I would tell us about that, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you about that. I would say, aside from like my website, Instagram is a good place to find me because I'm very active in like talking about what's going on, like what I'm doing, but also what other people are doing. Instagram's really good for that. I have a lot of older students who they're like, how do you use this Instagram? And it's like, you don't need to use the entirety of Instagram, but there's things that like little things that you can do to like it'll give you a lot, right? Like just being engaged with like certain accounts. So like for me, my Instagram is Shizmatic, SHIZZ_MATIC. So if you look me up, I try to connect with other people. I try to put out information about what I'm doing. And one of those big things that we're doing is a dance festival in a couple weekends, Sambanismo Seminar, June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, that I'm co-hosting, directing, managing with my teacher from Brazil, Edson Gonzaga. He's actually going to be in town this week. He's going to be subbing my classes leading up to the seminar. So come out and take class, everybody. It's a really good opportunity to learn from someone that like he has a lot of world traveling experience. You talk about community. He's connected to everybody around the world. And that's part of what makes this event that we're doing so cool, is that we were able to tap into some folks from New York, LA, not New Jersey, Paris, South America, like bringing people from all different places to converge, teach, educate. And it's going to be a really fun, special event. I'm really excited about it. And if you go to my website, seanbjerke.net, all the information's there.
Nice. Oh, I'm curious too. Now, this is for me.
Yes.
It's for the audience too. But about you, there's a Sambanismo. Am I saying it's Sambanismo?
Sambanismo.
Sambanismo.
Yes.
Right. And there's an academy that you're starting as well.
Yes. So that's actually starting up. Yeah. I know. I feel like I have this list of things that I have. My brain's here, all at the same time. But the Sambanismo Academy is going to be a year-long program, like a house dance program. Again, like me and Edson are going to be co-directing it. We also have Shaness, who's like OG from New York, involved as well. He's going to be coming up once a month to teach. And this weekend, Memorial Day weekend, is like our first like intensive with the students that have enrolled in the academy. So many things. And it's going to be this 3-day, like 12 hours of learning. It's not all going to be like beat you up, but learning some things, practicing, talking about it. And it's going to be the three of us. It's like we're almost like 3 different generations of dancer. Like Shaness is one of Edson's like good friends, but also like teacher. And then Edson is my teacher. So these are a lot of my students that are going to have like that lineage, that legacy that they're learning from. So it starts off this weekend. It's going to be in Cambridge at the Multicultural Center. And also we're going to be El Nino. It let us use some space at Floor Lords too. Shout out to the Floor Lords studio over in Harvard. Yes. And then after this weekend, we're going to do like a weekly, essentially a weekly class where the students will be learning with me, but learning a certain curriculum from Edson that's going to really evolve their dance, like past just going to class and learning like some bits and pieces, like really how to connect things so that they have a system that they can use to really elevate how they understand house and where they can take it from there.
Nice. I love it. Yeah. Well, Sean, man, you got a lot going on and I love all of it, man. You know, keep doing what you're doing, man. Proud of you and I love what you're doing for the community here in Boston and across the globe, and keep rocking.
Okay, man. Same to you. You've always been someone that like you're managing not just like many different things, but many different like places. Like you've got dancing, you've got your music, you've got DJing, you've got family. The most important job is being a great and supportive father, mother in that family environment. So your kids, I'm sorry that CJ couldn't join us today, but just seeing like how you guys have developed this podcast is like, wow, like look at this outstanding version of Carl. Like it's like a younger Carl.
Crazy. It's crazy. Right? It is.
Four more after that.
4 more after that, brother. 4 more after that.
No, that's it. But you keep doing your thing. Like you inspire me with your energy and your just like consistent output into the community. So thank you for being a mentor to me.
Thank you, brother. There you have it. We hope you enjoyed our podcast. If you would be so kind, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and or if you're listening to any of our platforms, whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whichever one, please be so kind to give us a 5-star rating if you enjoyed the podcast. And we'll talk to you soon.